I mean, you're driving through along the bottom of a 12-foot deep trench, which is spooky as hell enough in the daytime, and at night it's really bad.
Right.
We came out of that, and we stopped near the old jail, what they call the old jail. Maybe just an old root cellar. I don't know, it's hard to tell. While we were sitting there, a couple of us that had thermal imagers thought we saw something showing up on the hill to the east of us, right off the edge of this trench. I sat there and watched it, and this thing, we're talking about fairly close. We're talking about 40 yards away. And I could definitely see a thermal signature coming out from underneath a bunch of brush and limbs and stuff up on this hillside. And I decided to ease up on it to see what I could, to try to get a better view of it. All right, a couple of guys went walking back up into the trench, which would have put them on the north side of it, but the trench at that point this is their old road bed, was so deep down that they couldn't see up and over the edge to see whatever it was laying up underneath that, in that brush. So I walked out of the road bed and I just started walking up the face of the hill. And I could only, I could take a couple of steps, and I had to lower. I could take a couple of steps, look through my thermal imager, and then have to lower it down, take a couple more steps, and look through my imager. As I came up to it, at one point it was very clearly up underneath this brush. I had to lower it down to take a couple of steps. I raised it back up, and something was moving up there, and I realized it was moving away. I could never see it clearly enough to tell what it was. All I knew was that after it left, there was a thermal signature left. There was a warm spot on the ground where this thing had been.
Valerie, didn't Valerie catch it with her thermal too?
I think she did.
Yeah.
Somebody was, she was off flanking me to my left, yes. She caught it too. She actually had a little bit better angle on it than I did. But there was a warm spot on the ground there for a few minutes after whatever it was left. Now, could it have been a 60-pound badger or something like that, or maybe, I don't know. But it left a pretty good sized warm spot on the ground where it left out of. It was so thick, and once I got up close, it was there were a bunch of briars and crap in there, and I didn't want to go crawling in there at night. Plus, I saw a bunch of poison ivy in there, and that stuff eats me alive. So I didn't crawl right in there where it had been. I got as close as I could, but without, if I'd have gone much further, it would have involved probably getting my clothes just about torn off of me in the brush and briars and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But there was definitely a thermal signature on the ground where whatever it was had been. That was all that we really had happen. There was still a lot of wind that night. At that point, this is early in the evening. The wind had not laid down any at that point, and we hung around there for a while, and we tried some calling and stuff, but it was we got an answer way up a valley to the north of us, but it never did come any closer. We could never, whatever answered us back never would come in.
I think Dave actually caught
left
that.
Out of there.
I think Dave actually caught that on his audio, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, we need to get all that audio analyzed or listened to and see what we picked up, because he had his recorders going everywhere we stopped.
Mm-hmm.
We went from there back to a location way out south of Anadarko. Down area that where the fellow that had grown up around there, that he'd known about since he was a kid. And this was an old battleground, an old American Indian battleground. And we went back up in that place, and it didn't really creep me out. Some people were getting a really bad vibes up in there, but it didn't creep me out that bad. However, I could tell that it could definitely get to be a creepy place. In fact, he told us about that there were times that they had been up in there and they just couldn't even stay there. They would drive up in there and turn around and get parked, and it just was so ominous they would just decide to leave, and without even doing any calls or even getting out of the truck. So, but when we were there, it didn't have that bad of a feel to it. So we got out and we just listened and milled around, quietly, and got our recorders and everything set up, and I scanned around and with my thermal and didn't see her, didn't see anything, didn't really hear anything. So we decided to try this new calling method up there. And since I had been doing it earlier in the evening, and it sort of was learn more to how to get it to work better, it didn't take me but a couple of times to do it right. And we got an answer from way up a valley to the northeast of us. And this guy, that had grown up there, he knew the lay of the land real well, and he said these answers were coming from like 2 miles away. And they were long, drawn-out answers, and like a siren call. And from that distance away and that kind of an answer, it made my hair stand up.
Yeah, those were some
this thing.
Good responses.
Yeah. I hope that Dave got them on his recorder. But when I made the call, this thing, as soon as I got off the call, this thing is, excuse me, I can't do it. It went on for another 10 seconds and then rolled off into a loud roar. And then the interesting thing was, there was another one started up that you could clearly tell was over on the other side of the valley. So we got 2 for the price of 1. Mm-hmm. We got 2 loud answers. And even from a couple of miles away, you could hear them clearly. We stood there a minute. I got on the call again. We instantly got answers again, except this time we got 3 answers, and one of them was coming from almost straight east of us, whereas 2 were coming down down either side of this valley to the northeast of us. And it was obvious that those 2 were closer. They were coming to us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we just got quiet. We just got quiet, and about that time, we heard a call back to the southwest of us, coming around the side of a hill. We're like, oh crap, we're getting flanked. Mm-hmm. There were cattle out in the field. There was a lot of cattle in a field to the I guess that would be to the west and northwest of us. And the cattle started getting sort of antsy, and they had been up fairly close to us. Well, they started moving out into the field to the northwest, sort of getting away from us, and getting away from that hillside where something was coming from the southwest. I looked around with my thermal imager. Those of us that had thermals, we looked to verify that the cattle were moving, and a few of the cattle were looking at us, but most of the cattle were keeping their eye on that hill to the south of them, which would have been to the southwest of us. They had been making a little bit of noise and stuff, but they got quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And they all sort of clumped up in a group. Like I said, there was a couple that were sort of eyeballing us, and the rest of them were watching that hillside to the south of them. All of them were. It looked like something out of an African, mutual wild kingdom when the water buffalo or whatever go into a defensive posture. In the meantime, back behind us to the east and to the southeast, those three cut loose again, and they are a lot closer. They've closed probably 2/3 of the distance on us. And they closed that, I'll bet you they covered that first mile. This is what's crazy. Looking at it later on a map, I could see some of the landmarks that were being described to us about that area. And this is later on, looking at it on Google satellite view. To see the distance that the dadgum thing covered was pretty eye-opening. These things covered over about 1.25 miles in 7 or 8 minutes, something like that, or less.
Mm-hmm. And it's rough terrain too.
Yeah, these guys were moving on. The one that came from the east, it came straight from the east. Once it got off of a big ridge that was straight east of us, probably, I don't know, 3/4 or 7/8 of a mile away, it got down into a big wide pasture, and that son of a gun closed the last half a mile on us. It seemed like hardly 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, that son of a gun was hauling ass.
Mm-hmm.
And it came up, and right out from us, there was a bunch of trees growing out in this field, just a sort of a little scope of trees, and it screamed one time from there, and then it shut up, and we never heard it again. The other ones came in, and the one that had been the furthest to the southeast, the one that had been, I guess, it came from the southeast, but it was the one that was furthest to the west. It was coming up the west side of this big draw. It got up into the woods, up on the side of this hill that was to the south and the southeast of us and to the southwest. And it got up on the side of the hill and got altitude on us, and it was looking down on us from southeast of us. I guess that would have been more southeast. While we knew that there was another one that was up on the side of the hill, sort of to the southwest of us at this point. And we heard it cut loose several times. And then there was the one that had been running along the east side of that big draw, coming from the southeast. It hit the southern part of that scope of woods that was out in the field there east of us, and it held up. But they were quite vocal as they came in, and I tried to lure them in where we could see them, and all we ever got was a couple of glimpses of eye shine. We had a beautiful moon that night, and if we could have gotten them to especially the two that were to the one at the north end and one at the south end of that scope of woods that were out in that field east of us, we would have been able to see them good in the moonlight. But we never could get them to come out, and we were sort of laying low and trying to be, non-threatening and all. They wouldn't show themselves. I think, like I said, I think the only eye shine we really saw very much of was the one that was one of the ones that was up in the woods, up on the hillside.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We stayed there, an hour or so.
Yeah.
Hoping that we would, could stir something up. Get a good sighting. But we never could get them to come in. But boy, they sure came. As far as they came, though, they they did it quickly and vocally.
Yes, they did.
So that was pretty cool to get to experience that. Anyway, we left there and we went to a place that, not going to use the name of it. It's one of the damnedest places I've ever been to. We were on a road, on a 2-track road, and we're running along. There is a 20-foot bluff, sheer bluff. Sometimes it actually leaned out over us, and like we were driving through a cliff shelter. But there was a 20-foot bluff on our 20 to 25-foot high bluff on our right-hand side, and a dadgum drop off down into a creek on the left-hand side. And this old boy, this local guy that was there with us, if my life depended on it, I don't think any of us could have found our way back in there. My God, he led us all over the countryside to get back into this place. I mean, I was astounded that he could even remember how to get back in there, as many twists and turns and stuff as we did. And I mean, sometimes we came to places that I didn't even know that there was. I couldn't even tell that there was a damn road.
Right.
We'd go like, we'd be driving like just across some damn country, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh boy, there's a 2-track here. Somebody has driven across here before. But holy crap, this place is crazy. And where we stopped, the bluff above us hung out halfway over the road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you stopped and when I got out and looked up, I'm looking at the bottom of this big overhang. And I said, something could have walked out there and just walked out to the edge and just dropped a big-ass rock, and it would have landed right on top of us, right on top of my truck. Man, that place is creepy.
That was a creepy spot.
And so we were there, and I just wanted to be quiet and just listen. So we were there for a while, and finally the guy that took us back there, he said, "Coonbo, do a call." I said, "Hell, I don't want to do a call back here." He said, "Oh, come on, it'll be all right. Do a call." So I did a damn call, and the woods absolutely lit up. I mean, not lit up, but I mean, the woods went crazy. But it wasn't boogers, it was damn owls. It was like we interrupted the damn North American barred owl convention. I mean, the damn barred owls around us went absolutely bonzo.
They went crazy.
All these crazy calls. I mean, yeah, you get on any websites that look up weird barred owl calls, and that's BARRED. And listen to some of the crazy ass calls and cackles and things that they can make. And we heard them. And I got to going back and forth with them, and it was something else. It was really cool. But then we realized in the middle of all of it, all of a sudden we heard walking along the bluff out to the east of us. The bluff tapered down. It was only about 10, 12 feet high. And we realized that something heavy large, heavy, and bipedal was walking along the top of that bluff. And it walked up to a point, and it called one time, and the damn owls shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty much the end of it.
Yep.
We hung out there for quite a while longer. None of the owls that were around us anywhere close would make a sound after that. The only thing is later I was able to get some way out to the west of us stirred up, but we were not able to get anything, any noise at all right there around us. It was creepy as hell, but I never felt that we were in danger.
Yeah.
The worst thing I was worried about was that damn thing. If it had continued to walk on up that bluff, as the bluff got higher and higher, and hell, I was as big as it sounded. I was afraid the damn bluff's going to break off, and the damn booger and half the bluff was going to land right on top of my truck.
Yeah.
But that was a creepy ass place.
It was.
And I tried some of my new calling technique, and we actually tried reflecting it off the face of the bluff, and that was pretty cool. Man, it echoed all down through there and down through that damn creek bottom, and it sounded pretty damn wicked. But that was a badass place.
It was.
That was I'd rate that right up there with Purgatory as far as creepy shit index.
I definitely would.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I still don't know how in the heck you definitely had to have been a local to know how to get to this place.
Yeah,
I mean,
I could probably search for that thing for hours and couldn't find it.
Yeah, even during the daytime.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no way I could find that again. Yeah, Lord have mercy. That place was something else. Let's see here. Let me see where we are. Let's see here. Yeah. Oh, after that, we had to go back up to where Jimmy left his truck. And we got back up there because we were going to start working our way back towards where we'd camped, which was a couple hours away. We got up there where Jimmy had left his truck, and Jimmy was having some issues with his starter. So while he was working on his starter, go ahead, Chuck. I'll let you tell. You need to tell this because this happened to you.
Okay. What the deal was there was 4 people in the truck that I was in. I was in the passenger seat, and Dave was in the driver's seat. And Dave's never seen one, so he is dying to see one. And so Dave was in the driver's seat, and sitting directly behind Dave was Debbie, Mary Fabian's sister, and Mary was sitting right behind me. And Dave and Debbie were looking at their phones. Meanwhile, I was looking across the highway where we were at, and I don't remember what time that was, Tim. I want to say it was probably 12 or 12:30ish, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been later than that.
Yeah. I think it was 12:30 to 1, somewhere around like that.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I see a booger come from behind this building, and it crossed the highway and went into the wood line. And I'm sitting there in shock because this is an area where there's people around and everything else, and this thing it was moving fast. And I said, "Hey, I just saw one," and they were like, "You did?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And Mary sitting behind me, she said, "I saw it too." I said, "Yeah, it ran from behind that building, ran across the highway," and she goes, "Yeah, and it went into the wood line." So that was pretty good confirmation that I wasn't just seeing things. We both saw it. and it was just a really cool sighting that Mary and I saw, and I was on cloud nine after that. I mean, that was a good sighting, because he was probably talking to Mary. I think we were thinking that he was probably 8 feet tall, and he was black in color, and he was booting and scooting when he went across the highway. He wasn't slowing down for nothing. So.
Yeah. And the good part about this is there were this building that the thing came out from behind was there were lights. There were some lights on the outside of the building, at least one pretty good sized light, and there were lights out in front of the building.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just seeing the thing run in the moonlight. This thing actually was lit up with I guess you'd call it street lights.
Right. Right.
With big metal halide lights. Actually, I think these are high pressure sodium lights, if you want to be technical about it. Didn't these have sort of the yellowish tint to them?
Yes, they did.
Yeah. So these lights are designed to throw pretty good light out. In fact, that's one of the advantages of that type of light is it works good even in shadowy conditions.
All in all, it was a really.
Sad thing about it is I was sitting in my truck right beside Dave's truck, and pointing in the same direction, but I was trying to pay attention to what Jimmy was doing, with his truck. If he's able to get his truck started, or if we're going to have to tow it out of there, or what.
Right. Right.
And I was paying attention to what was going on with Jimmy, and missed the booger running across the road.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you what, Tim, I gave Dave so much crap after that, because I asked him, I said, David, do you know why the booger crossed the road? And he said, no. And I said, because he knew you wouldn't be looking. Oh, he got mad at me.
Because you were playing on your phone. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, makes you wonder just how many times we had things happen on this trip that later that just sort of shows you that how many times the things happen right in front of us and we never see it.
Yep.
We never see it. Okay, let's go to the next night, as a matter of fact. The very next night, Dave, speaking of Dave, works up in that area. In fact, he works all over, I guess, a large portion of Oklahoma at times. And there's an area a couple hours east or so of where we were camping that he had driven through numbers of times. Again, another very, very large piece of federal property that he's driven through multiple times, and there's one particular part of this large piece of federal property that he's been wanting to go into for quite a long time. And I have been through close to there, but I had never been in this exact area that Dave had found. So we decided that the next night it's going to be windy, and possibly some rain might blow in, but we decided to head over there. That there was enough variation in the terrain that we thought that we could find, if it was real windy, we thought that we could find some places to get out of the wind, do some calling. So we headed over there right after lunch. Got over there and found the place that Dave was wanting to go into. And my goodness, if we had trouble getting into places where we were camped, this place was exactly the opposite. We couldn't believe the places that we could get into.
It was wide open.
Absolutely couldn't believe it. Yeah, wide open. We drove for miles and miles and miles back into this area. I mean, this is a huge area. And I knew it was big, but I didn't know it was this big. And we drove miles back in this place. We drove through some just, I guess, what did you feel about the first places that we drove into, Chuck?
Oh. Are you talking about the
being up on top of the stuff? Up on top of the stuff that we were driving on.
That was crazy. I thought you was talking about the little community, which I won't mention.
No.
Okay.
We can't mention that.
Yeah, I saw part of the.
I'm talking about when we finally got into the wilderness.
Right.
The places, the first places that we drove.
Well, some of those places were incredible.
Yeah, unbelievable. If the weather had cooperated, we're going to be going back there. And hopefully the weather will cooperate. If the weather had cooperated, we could have sat up there, and I could have done calls that boogers 6 or 7 miles away would have heard.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, the country that we could have covered with calls. But just getting to drive around in that place was amazing.
It was amazing.
Just amazing. Roads everywhere. There were just tons of places. We just kept finding more and more places we wanted to go into. And finally, we just had to we regrouped, and we just decided, we're going to have to just concentrate on this area here. But it was freaking unbelievable. We drove and drove and drove, and just looked and looked, and we decided that, and the wind started getting up on us. So we decided that, well, let's go eat supper. Let's go find a place to eat, and then we'll come back out and just see what the evening holds. So we went, and in the freaking middle of nowhere, we found what may have been some of the best Mexican food I've ever eaten.
It was good.
Oh, boy, was it good. And we knew it was good because all the locals from miles around were there.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. And, in fact, how did we find out about that place?
I don't know.
Didn't we run up on somebody that told us about it? Weren't we just...
Well, I think we were driving to the little community, and there were several places that we could have stopped and ate, and somebody said they wanted Mexican food, so I think we just drove till we found one.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, was this place good?
Yeah, it was good.
And man, it was unbelievably good. So we came out of there. We got done eating dinner, and we came back out, and man, the wind was howling. So we had been looking at some of the maps and everything, and Dave said, we can get into this place, and he knew how to get down into a lowland section, a bottomland section of this massive piece of property. And so he's pretty much guided us, and we got down in there, and we had picked out a couple of places we wanted to call from. And so we went to the first place and started to pull in there, and lo and behold, there's some turkey hunters camped down in there. We said, well, shoot. So we turned around, we left, and I'm telling you what, down in this bottom, now you talking about wild and woolly and boogery.
Mm-hmm.
the road is so narrow going through the most unbelievably impenetrable woods that a lot of places you couldn't even there wasn't even hardly enough room to open the doors to get out of the truck. So we drove to, like I said, we drove to this one place we thought we could do some calling, and there were turkey hunters camped in there. So we saw another place. We saw a place that was supposed to be a little park down in this, or a picnic area or something down in this big piece of federal land. So we drove to that, turned in there, and son of a gun, more turkey hunters camped. So we turned around and we started coming out of that place, and we realized that we'd made a wrong turn. So we realized we had to turn around. So I started to turn into a little side road, to turn around, and Kurt and Valerie were behind me. I am looking to my left to turn because, man, this road is tight. I mean tight. And the last thing I want to do is run off the road and get down the dadgum ditch and get stuck, because this is a place you didn't want to get stuck in. I'm turning in this road, in this little side road, and Kurt and Valerie are behind me as my headlights swept across the wood line. Straight in front of me, there's a damn booger standing there in the wood line that as soon as my lights hit it, it dove head first into these about 3-foot high weeds or 2-foot high weeds right in front of it. Nobody in my truck saw it. We were looking further to the left to where I was trying to turn into to try to turn around. Kurt and Valerie just happened to be, they were looking at where my headlights were shining. And they saw it clearly, both of them. And I never saw the dadgum thing. So I finally get turned around, and this is a place that's so tight, we have to go in one at a time. So I turn in, and then back up, and I'm coming out, and I'm having to squeeze by Kurt. And he's got his windows down, and he's waving his hand. He said, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" And I said, "No, what?" He said, "There was a bugger standing right there in front of you." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "When your headlights hit it, it dove into those weeds right there." Tell me, "Are you really?" He said, "Yeah." And he said, "It may still be in there. I'm gonna run up there and put my lights right in it." Well, so we sort of hesitated there a bit, and Kurt ran up there and put his high beams right on it, and eased right up there into the dadgum weeds, and it was long gone. I guess probably as soon as there were no headlights on it, it hauled butt. Mm-hmm. But they dadgum sure saw it. Both of them saw it. I moved down the road a little piece and waited there, but I got turned around. So now I'm in the front, and we go driving down the road, following this dadgum road. I'm looking, I said, "Man, we can't stop here." I said, "This place is too narrow." I said, "We got to get some places that's at least got enough room that we can get out of the truck without, stepping off in the ditch, or being in the brush." Finally, we kept the road a little piece, and there's a slightly wider place in the road where you can tell that they've been cutting a bunch of cedar trees. This is a tremendous cedar forest down in there, and they've been cutting cedar trees, and they've had a skid loader in there that they've been loading them out on trucks. You can see where it's been happening, and that the road bed there was about, I don't know, Chuck, what'd you say, 30 feet wide, something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Roughly, where we ended up stopping.
Yeah.
So I pulled up into this area, and I thought I'd gone far enough, and I stopped, and I got out, and I walked back towards the back, and whoever the tail end truck was didn't have enough room. They couldn't get out in there where they could, they could get out. So I walked back to my truck, cranked up, and I pulled forward about 50, 60 feet, and then stopped. And I got out. It was about 9 o'clock, and a bunch of clouds a whole front of clouds had blown in. And the moon that had been out was now totally covered up in behind the clouds. And I mean, you talk about dark. I literally could not see my hand in front of my face. And everybody else is starting to get out and get their stuff, get their stuff together. And I'm thinking, I just got this creepy feeling. I need to get my thermal fired up so I can see what the hell's going on around us. So I walked back to the door of the truck. I'd been standing right in front of my truck. I walked back to the truck, opened the door, reached over on the center console, picked up my thermal, and turned it on. I eased the door shut, walked back to the front of the truck, and I lifted up to my eye to see if it's gone through its boot up procedure. And just about the time about a second after I lifted it up, it kicks on. Right there in front of me, there's a damn booger standing there, 25 or 30 feet away. I'm thinking, what the hell? And I let the thing down, and I'm looking. I don't see anything. I raise it back up. By God, there's a booger right there in front of me, and I mean a big one, too. I'm talking about a 9 and a half, maybe 10 footer. Right there in front of me. And I mean, it's so close, it's just, and I've got the thing set where white is hot, or hot is white, and cold is black to gray. This thing is white hot in my damn imager, so white hot that I really can't see any much features of it. Basically, what I'm seeing is the outline of it. It's standing there in the tree line. I mean, just outside the tree line. It has just walked out into the cleared area there, and it's at the most 30 feet, probably more like about 25, 26 feet away from me. It starts walking across the road, no sound whatsoever, none. And this is a big type 1 patty type. I mean, massive, huge feet. And I'm like, oh, there's a booger. Look. And there's several people. I could hear people behind me. I said, there's a booger right in front of me. Look. And this thing never looks at me. At least if it did, I couldn't tell it because it was so close and it was so hot looking that it was just washing out any features of it. But the thing that caught my eye was it had a big old baggy butt on it like Patty. If you look at the Patterson-Gimlin film and some of the angles that she's walking away, her butt looks real baggy. In fact, it looks almost squared off sometimes, like she's had a crappy diaper on and has been sitting down and gets up and it's still sort of flat on the bottom or something. That this thing's butt looked just like Patty's butt. And it walks across the road right in front of me, never makes a sound. No gravel crunched, no nothing. Mm-hmm. I dropped the thing down another time. I can't hear anything. I can't see it. I can't even see I can't see any dark spot in front of me or nothing. It could have been 3 feet from me, fixing to grab me by the neck and yank my head off, and I would have not seen it coming. I put the thing back up. There's a large tree, a big oak, probably 2.5 feet in diameter, on the left-hand side of the road. It walks in behind that thing, and it leans forward, and it looks at me around the left-hand side of that tree, and its butt is sticking out on the right-hand side. And I'm thinking, I said, I can't believe what a big old baggy-ass butt that thing's got on it. It looks like it's got a crappy diaper, a big loose diaper full of crap hanging off of its butt. Is the impression I got. I'm like, I'm totally aghast. About that time, some people behind me starts getting their stuff going, and I could hear people coming up behind me. At this point, I can tell that it's leaning out, and it does have its head turned toward me, because I can see, as hot and white as the thing is, I can see its eyes are even brighter white. And of course, I can't see any detail or anything like that, but I can make out two even more white spots there on its head, on its what would have been its face. And I'm still totally aghast at this. This is the best close-up sighting I've had in 15 years, and I still can't see it. I dropped the thing down again. I cannot see it with any of it with my naked eye.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody's coming up behind me.
I think it was me.
And I could hear them. I could hear the gravel. Okay, I hear the gravel crunching behind me, and then the thing starts moving off into the woods. At that point, we start hearing it, little twigs snap and stuff like that. We can start hearing it moving through the woods. But when it crossed that road, there was no sound whatsoever. When it started back into the woods, we could hear it. And who clicked on the spotlight about then, or a flashlight?
I think we all did.
Somebody clicked on a light.
I think we all did.
I didn't have one in my hand. I didn't have one. Several lights got clicked on, and then I could see it had gotten off in there probably, 10, 12 feet by this point. And I was just getting glimpses of it as it disappeared back into the woods. And then it walked back into the woods, maybe another 30 feet or so, 30, 35 feet. And then it turned around to its right and looked back towards us, and I saw eye shine. And you saw eye.
Yeah.
Was it you? Somebody there beside me else saw eye shine. In fact, I think there were three of us saw eye shine. And did you see it?
Yeah, I did. And
briefly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then.
And it just.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh. We saw eye shine just briefly. I never did see it really move away. I never saw any more motion through the woods. But the woods were really, really thick there, of course. But I sort of got the impression that it may have put its arm up over its face, or his hand up over its face, shielding its eyes.
Right.
But I don't know. But about that time, somebody shined their light up the road. There's two more out in the road. About, I don't know, how far you reckon that is? 75, 80 yards?
Yeah, at least that.
Something?
At least that, yeah.
Yeah, maybe 90 at the most. The road is straight as an arrow for probably 70, 75 yards.
Yep.
And then it starts curved to the right.
Yep. Right
up there where it started to curve, there's two of them standing in the road. And somebody starts saying, look at that. And there's two standing in the road, and they're just standing there looking at us. They are standing outside the tree line. They're out in the road. They're probably, 25, 30 feet apart.
Yeah. Because
the road starts curving. One is further around the curve than the other one. One is right where the road just starts to curve, and the other one is around pretty close to the last part of the road that you could see. So they were sort of diagonal. They're not side by side. They're like on a diagonal. One is closer into the left, and the other one's further away into the right.
Right.
But anyway, they're just standing there. In the meantime, we hear the other one that's down there that we'd first seen, we hear him go walking off, going definitely further back into the woods. We heard him moving away, and he moved off away so we couldn't hear him anymore. Okay. 4 guys start walking up the road towards the two that are standing out there still in plain view. They go about, I guess they've made it about 40 feet.
I was one of them, and it was only about probably 20 yards from you, if that.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, a dadgum hog, about a 120-pound hog, walks out of the woods on the right-hand side of the road, same side that the booger had walked out of, walked across in front of me, but on beyond that point. This hog walks out of the dadgum woods. These four guys, you and Jim and who were those two?
It wasn't Larry. One of them, I thought Val was up front too.
I don't remember, but there were four people.
Yeah,
I remember. And there was you, and I know Jim was one of them, and not Jimmy, but Jim.
Yeah.
Hell, Jimmy might have been there. Hell, I can't remember. But there were four people walking side by side, crunching gravel, walking up through there, headed towards where these two boogers. This hog walks out 10 feet in front of y'all.
Yeah.
10 feet in front of you, and it's addled. It walks out and it sort of hesitates a minute. It never looks toward you.
Nope.
Never acknowledges your presence in any way whatsoever. And then it just sort of ambles on across the road. And the four guys are standing there like, holy crap. My thought is, oh shit, I got to get a gun.
Yeah.
What if this thing attacks? What if the thing sees them and attacks? I turn around and I run to the truck and grab my Ruger Blackhawk 45 Colt out of the console.
Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I could have swore when all of that was taking place, of course it happened so fast, but I could have swore you told me, because I carry, you told me, pull your gun, and I didn't even have my gun on me. I had to go back to my pickup to get mine.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I said, who's got a gun? I said, who's got a gun? If you got a gun, pull it. Because I was afraid that hog was going to see y'all.
Yeah.
And hell tear into you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't know what the hell they'll say. The way it was acting, I was afraid that it was going to light into us, because it was not afraid of y'all.
No.
At all.
Plus, we didn't know if there was maybe more of them there.
Exactly. We could have been in the middle of a whole sounder of hogs.
Sure.
But anyway, and a sounder is a flock or a bunch of hogs, wild hogs. And this was definitely a wild hog. It was not a domestic hog.
Yeah.
And anyway, when I realized that nobody had a gun, I ran back to my truck, grabbed my Ruger Blackhawk 45 Colt, and ran back up there. And about the time I got there, it had ambled off. It was just ambling off into the woods on the left-hand side of the road. And the thing about it is, it was obvious that this hog was addled. Now, thinking about it later, we realized that this hog, what happened is we interrupted a hog hunt. This hog had either been chased like crazy by the boogers through those woods, or it had been, slapped or knocked up against something. But it was fixing to be dinner, and we screwed it up.
Yep.
We screwed up their dinner. So, in the meantime, after the hog goes off in the woods, I'm standing there with my pistol in my hand, my revolver in my hand, and you and Jim and the other two head on up the road where the boogers are.
Yep.
Still standing out in the road.
Yeah.
As they get closer, they literally backed back into the woods.
Yep.
We watched them.
Yep.
They backed back into the woods, and as they got closer, they got deeper into the woods, and eventually it got to where we couldn't. We were just getting little glimmers, little glimpses of eye shine. Once y'all got up there, they were nowhere to be seen or heard.
Right.
So they looked. Y'all hung around up there, 10 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think by that time Larry was with me. Larry was there and Val was there.
In the meantime, we start hearing something in the woods back off to our I don't know what direction you think that road was going that y'all were going to the north. I was
no,
turned around at that point.
I think that actually went to the south. If I remember, I could be wrong. I'm getting my directions wrong too.
Yeah. I don't know. We had twisted and turned around in there so much this time. No, it was to the north because the moon, before it went in behind the clouds, was to looking up the road was to the right.
Mm.
So that road did go north. The little glimpse, the glimpse of moon that I got when we were coming up there and just starting to stopping. When I stopped the first time and I walked back to see if everybody was out into that wide spot, the moon was to the right. So that means that road went to the north.
Okay.
So, all right, back there was a little wide place, and there was like a little 2-track going back into the woods where they had been dragging cedar logs and stuff out of the woods, and there was a bunch of cedar trees, and there was a pile of cedar limbs and stuff like that off the side of the road. Back in behind all that, we started hearing a bunch of racket. Couldn't tell what in the hell it was. We knew it wasn't boogers, but I wondered if it wasn't other hogs rooting around back there and making a bunch of noises. It was weird noises, and